everyone to the No Vision Internet Radio. Today, I am actually no vision. You can't see me, folks, because I was supposed to be in the backstage of this, and our special guest, the host, couldn't connect. So it's going to be me and Mr. Bautista, and our special guest is Miss Alexsandra Annello. She's an incumbent running for District 2, of course. The early election or early voting ends December the 8th, or December the 8th. And the general voting is December 12th, which is a Saturday. And before I go further, we are going live on Facebook and Twitter. I like to say Twitter, I don't know why. And first of all, I'd like to say thanks to everyone for our last show we had with the founding members of the CARES Coalition, which stands for Coalition for Accessible Response and Emergency Services. We're a coalition of people working with the city and county to make services are accessible and information for people with disabilities during this pandemic. And we had I checked right now, 862 views. So thank you so much for everyone for sharing that video. And hope you do the same here with Miss Alexsandra Annello. She is running for District 2. So good afternoon or good evening there, Miss Annello.
Hi, thank you for having me. Again, I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to speak to everyone.
Thank you, ma'am. And then Mr. Bautista, good morning, sir. Good afternoon.
Good evening.
Good evening. I'm still awake. I'm playing catch up here, folks. But basically, what we're trying to do for this final round of discussions with candidates, folks, is have a discussion with Ms. Annello for District 2, and then Judy Gutierrez would be on December the 8th. Mr. Bautista invited Ms. Gutierrez. She said yes. So I think it's our initiative here is to educate you, the voters, to make the more defined decision. We try to be non-biased here, folks. We just try to give you the details and the platform of the candidates. But before we go any further, Ms. Annello, just tell everyone, ma'am, I know people pretty much know who you are, but just in case those who don't, can you let them know who you are, ma'am?
Yeah, my name is Alexsandra Annello. I am the current District 2 city representative, and I am running for re-election.
And so is it 4 years or 3 years this past term, or 3.5 years?
The terms are 4 years because the elections were moved from May to January. They're about 3.5 years.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, and so we have sent a question. I'll let Mr. Bautista start because again I'm playing catch up here. So Mr. Bautista.
Okay. Well, thanks for showing up, Ms. Annello, and we really welcome you. As George said, we want you to be able to give your constituents more information so that they will be more knowledgeable, and then maybe you'll pick up some more constituents on the way. The results of the last election showed that you were at 36% of the vote, and your opponent had 47%. What have you done to try to compensate for that? I know that the gentleman that was running against you guys too, he had 16%, so it's kind of a low margin. But what have you been doing to try to get that 16% or close to it?
Sure. So we knew that going into the November election, it would be very hard. We knew coming out of early voting, there were about 4,000 people that we hadn't, 4,000 or 5,000 people that we had never spoken to, who had come out just to vote for president that were not regular voters. And so we knew that we were going to be down about that 4,000 votes, seeing as I was not the first person on the ballot. And so really we've just spent this time talking to all of the voters, everyone who came out, new voters, and just really trying to have the important conversations with them.
That's great. Do you feel, though, that perhaps with the COVID-19 situation being what it is right now, do you think that it hurts you as an incumbent because of the fact that the people just don't seem to be listening to the doctors or the scientists or the people with the information that to be more concerned about spreading the virus? Do you feel that maybe that's a problem or?
Sure. I mean, I think there's definitely a divide, right, especially between the candidates and their selection. I mean, I think that my record has definitely spoken for itself, and the work that I've done during the COVID-19 pandemic. A lot of people we're talking to are aware, right? They watch the news. They've seen the effort that myself and 3 other council members have put in to really try to help, whether that's with the pandemic or with CARES Act dollars. Remember, it was my initiative to really push to use CARES Act dollars for community-based programs, small business relief, housing, rental assistance, utility assistance. And so I think those things really speak for themselves, and people are aware of it. I do think there is a divide, right, when it comes to the election on those who think that, small businesses need to stay open, aren't really concerned with the financial relief that should be given to them, and, are less on the side of public safety. And like you said, listening to the doctors or the scientists. And, my opponent has made it very clear she's on that side. And so there has been, right, those conversations that need to be had, and that division that has been created, yes.
Do you all have some sort of connection with Las Cruces, with trying to correct the situation with the COVID? I don't know if you communicate back and forth with each other's council.
We don't. I mean, we all saw what happened here, right, when the council tried to get more communication with the mayor and the county judge, and what happened immediately after that. I don't think there's a lot of communication, and I think that when you watch what's happening in New Mexico, when you watch what's happening in Las Cruces, that's really coming from the top down, right? The governor of New Mexico has been very cognizant of what's happening in El Paso, what's happening in Texas, and is kind of trying to battle the Texas governor and do whatever they can to keep their community safe. And unfortunately, it seems like, the Texas governor, the mayor here in El Paso have not made their biggest priority.
Ms. Annello, I do have a question. Considering that this is your opportunity to highlight your platform or your campaign, give people the benchmarks of your career, of your tenure on city council, because I know there's a lot. And me and Mr. Bautista were talking about this before the show, that in my opinion now, we're seeing you on TV and knowing you on Facebook and whatnot. You've been really diligent for our voice, for people in the community. And some people, kind of rub the wrong way, saying that you're a bully or you're this or you're that, which I disagree with. But the thing is, I want to give you this opportunity to kind of show why you do what you do and why you're our voice on city council. And of course, we'll give the other candidate the opportunity to discuss her points. But for you, you've been there, you've done it for the past 3 and 4 years. So can you just give people like a benchmarks of your tenure?
Sure, absolutely. And thank you for bringing that up. I think last time I was here, we kind of talked about, would people be calling me a bully if I wasn't a woman, right? Which I think is a very valid point, that the very, valid conversation that we had last time. I think that I have been, I don't want to say aggressive, but I've been very proactive. And I think that in the 3.5 years that I've been on council, I've definitely pushed the most policy, placed the most agenda items, brought the most agenda items forward, and really pushed for change. And so one of the very first things that I did do, and was successful in passing, I was on council for about 5 weeks max when we passed the CIT program, which is the Crisis Intervention Team, which is mental health training, mental health assistance within our police department. Here in El Paso, we had some issues with the PD and those in mental health crisis. And actually, many of our police chiefs were working on this program. We're trying to get it through to the city. And I kind of stepped up. I knew about the program. I wanted to be a part of it. And so pushed really hard for that funding. And I now sit on the Emergence Health Network board of trustees because of that work, and still continue to be involved with the program today. Many other things, right? Vacant buildings is something that we've been talking about a lot lately. Getting our Building and Standards Commission on board to really deal with those. I've been floating a lot of ideas around, how do we come to a community that does have an issue with vacant buildings? For those who live in Central know, for many people, these homes have been passed down by their family. They don't live here in El Paso. It's easier for them and less expensive for them to just leave it in the state that it's in. And so we either need to be incentivizing or finding a way to get around that, right? You shouldn't leave a building vacant and dangerous in the community because it's more convenient for you to keep the property at a lower value, right? That brings everyone's values down. It hurts the community, and it puts people in danger. And so really looking at those initiatives on how we can help and move people out of that mindset. The youth committee is something that I'm very proud of. It is the first committee in the El Paso city government system in which is going to be run by high school students. And so really, a lot of times when we talk about municipal races, right, it's people over the age of 60 that predominantly vote, people over the age of 60 that are most involved. And so how do you get younger individuals aware of what their local government does, involved in what their local government does? And so, starting this committee in which students will learn the governmental process, but they will also, at the end of the year, come forward with policies they would like the council to pass on their behalf. I think is super important. Really, this is how you get young people engaged, and they'll take that home to their families, and they'll take that with them when they, buy their first property, start their families, and will continue that passion. There's a myriad of other things that we've done. It's hard to remember them all, especially at this jump, right? Community IDs was something that was very important to me. We have individuals in this community that don't have proper documentation, which does leave them in dire situations, right? Financial, we see a lot of these payday lenders burdening undocumented individuals in the community. You also, statistics show that individuals do not report crime if they do not feel safe to call it in, right? And so you have communities of undocumented individuals that just are not reporting crime. That does not leave them safe. It does not leave other people in this community safe. And so starting a community ID that is recognized by local authorities, that does help people get proper banking, bank accounts, checking accounts, helps them, pay. It also, in schools, a lot of times people have issues, getting their children early if they need to, taking them to doctor's appointments, enrolling them in school even. And so really making sure that every person in this community is able to participate at the capacity that they should. Unfortunately, that is one of the many things that came to a tie. Was broken by the mayor and did not pass, but I know something that is really, really passionate to people in this community and is to me, and I think it does deserve another effort.
I have two. Let me ask you two questions about these.
Go ahead.
Before I forget, because I'm doing that from the top of my head. So, two questions, Mr. Annello. First of all, with the potential of Oscar Leeser being back as the mayor, like I said, potential, folks. I'm not saying he is. Just the potential there. He, Mr. Leeser, would meet with people with disabilities on a quarterly basis, and from those meetings, it would funnel down to you, the city reps, in regards to areas, hot spots in your districts, for example. And I guess my first question is, if Mr. Leeser was to come back into office and we were to start these quarterly meetings again, can we ask for your assistance in helping us become more inclusive in our communities? Yeah,
I mean, absolutely. I'm sorry, there's an car alarm going off in my neighborhood. I apologize. But no, absolutely. I mean, I really enjoy working with Mayor Leeser. I would be excited for the things that he would be open to. Right? I think we've definitely been in an environment where it's not really inclusive, not to reuse your word, but even for ideas that are outside of the spectrum of the current mayor, right? And so I know that Mayor Leeser, one of the great things about him is his willingness to participate with community groups like y'all, to listen to things that he may not have on his radar or be an expert on. And yeah, I mean, that is definitely something that I would really love to participate in. I think that we've seen a lot happen. I know, y'all had sent out an email about the new pay system for Sun Metro, which is really great. There's years of work that took, and I did start with Mayor Leeser. And so, I think we've definitely hit a point where we've got to get more of those projects on board.
And what Ms. Annello is speaking of, folks, those who are watching and not aware, there is what's called a cashless option for those who want to use Sun Metro services, fixed route, trolleys, and the Lyft, the paratransit. And that will enable someone to pay via their phone, credit card or Google Pay or Apple Pay. And this initiative is going on since 2016. And mind you, other cities like San Antonio and Austin have been doing this for years already. But so my second question, and then Mr. Bautista, there's been questions, and I've seen it over and over, and I'm just, I want to ask you this question about you being not a native El Pasoan and the other opponent has been or is. What can you say to that in regards to you? Now, I really don't see how that affects
Sure,
your
yeah,
reelection, but
I was unfortunately not, born and raised in El Paso. I come from, I'm a child of Italian immigrants. My father, his family immigrated to Boston right after World War II. They then had my father and actually immigrated back to Italy. My father was raised in Italy. When he was a teenager, they returned to Boston. They were actually farmers. So when I say Boston, when they first came, they lived outside of Boston in Massachusetts. They were farmers. Went back to Italy, and then they came in and moved into the city. I did travel. I spent a lot of time trying to find the place that was home. Right, I moved to DC to start my college career. I moved to Austin, even to Marfa, which is how I found Far West Texas, and it just absolutely fell in love with it. And but it wasn't home. I met my husband there, but we knew that this isn't the place that we want to settle. And we decided on El Paso. I came to UTEP. I am a proud UTEP graduate and minor. And, this is the place that we wanted to be. This is the place that felt like home to me. This is where I purchased my first home. This is where we will start our family here in District 2. And I think I'm very, very lucky that I was able, and given the opportunity to be able to find a place in a community that was home for me. I know that my opponent has brought it up in ways, and she's from District 2. She did leave District 2. She left the city of El Paso and moved to Canutillo and found it convenient to come back and run, and that's fine. This is where, she was born and raised. But this is also my home. And this is something, it's hard to talk about because this is something that also was brought up in 2017. It's something that people find is a really easy hit, that because I'm not from here, I don't deserve to serve here. But I would also, remind those watching of phone calls I received in 2017 when this was an attack. And this is something I'm still hearing from people. Fort Bliss is in District 2. Many of the people in District 2 served their country, ended up at Fort Bliss, and retired in El Paso. And so those comments are not just, they're aimed at me, they're hitting me, but they're also speaking to other members of this community who may not be from here.
Well,
That's the amazing thing about El Paso. We are a binational community. We have a military base. There are people coming and going from El Paso all of the time. We are a center point for kind of, nomadic life in a way. And that's what's so great about it. And I think to shut that down, to say that I'm not qualified for this position because I'm not from here, I think does a disservice to everybody in this community.
well, Ms. Annello, I think that those comments about where you're from, you're here, you've been here, you were elected. So I mean, the people here didn't consider that. They just said, she's running for office. She's done a good job. And I don't think that has anything to do with anything. I just think that's a throwback from other people that, we always say, well, they're not from here. Well, neither were we. If you stop to think about it, a lot of us came from our parents were immigrants that came just like yours. So that those comments really, I don't think they take on. As far as George said that that you've been criticized for being a bully. I don't think being assertive is a bully. You need to be assertive for the district that you represent. If you're not going to be assertive, then if you're going to be like some of the other representatives that just sit there and vote, that doesn't do us any good, the community or the city of El Paso. So I choose to say that you're assertive, and I like that because I happen to be very assertive. When I was a civil service commissioner, I was probably the only assertive individual there that would stand up to the city hall, and you got to do that. You're representing the people,
I think what it is too, Mr. Nello, is, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just want to make sure that people understand that being assertive is different. What it is you have passion. And that's what I think a lot of the city council people lose or never had it. And you have that passion, and we see it, okay, and this is coming from a blind guy now, okay? We see it, and the thing is that people kind of misinterpret that as saying, well, she's abrasive or she's this. Or,
And
that's
she's a woman.
exactly what we need. That's what we need. You can't see me, but I'm moving my hands back and forth. Is that we're so complacent and saying, oh, you know what, this representative is too aggressive, or this representative is too passive. So we got to either pick our poison. Do we want someone just to rubber stamp everything with DeMarco, with all these taxes, boom, 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 boom? Or do we want somebody to say, hey, wait a minute, you know what, let's slow down, pump the brakes, let's see what's going on. But when you do it, because I really haven't heard anything, not really from any other council person, you really think about it. Because think about it, Margot, or what's the name, Morgan, he's out. Or he's not, in my opinion, a people person. Henry Rivera, forget about it. I'm going back to my Italian there. Hey, forget about it.
Yeah,
but the thing is,
Hernandez is just as assertive, and I like that. I mean, she's in my district. I like people being assertive. There's nothing wrong with that, George.
no, there isn't. That's what I'm saying. But people are misinterpreting that. And let me go back to my original statement, Ms. Annello. Passion, in my opinion, takes away anything else. For example, she's new to the community, or she barely got elected, or she barely got the president of the company, or she's barely the new employee on staff. But that passion, if you have the passion, that takes up everything. Like they say, attitude makes up for aptitude, in my opinion.
No,
I think
absolutely. And I want to say, I've never heard this idea of me being aggressive until this campaign, right? And this it kind of goes back to the "you're not from here." There's nothing else to say, right? If she has nothing else to say about why she deserves to be in this position more, that speaks for itself, right? I'm not from here. Does that?
But not only for you, Ms. Annello.
I'm sorry?
Not only for you, but other candidates. Because
Yeah.
I always seen that, like when the candidate, and this is not specific to this race, and I do want to be fair, but it's any other candidate. For example, if the candidate has nothing else to say about you or anybody else, they go another route. In other words, well, your mom wears army boots, that kind of stuff, because that's the last thing they have to say. But I'm not saying specifically for your campaign or the other opponent's campaign. But what I'm saying is, we're just gonna need to start being smart with our vote, and that's why me and Mr. Bautista, and this takes a lot of work, folks, to set up these appointments. Ms. Annello has many things to do right now, especially during her re-election campaign, and then we do appreciate you being on air with us. So we want people to understand that. We want to educate you as a voter to go out there and make the educated vote between Ms. Annello and Ms. Gutierrez. It's up to you. It's not up to us or Mr. Bautista. It's up to you, the voters, to go out there. And so maybe, I think Mr. Bautista touched on this, Ms. Annello. What do you think of the turnout this time, regards to the November 3rd, in regards to two things, the COVID, and then just people not coming out for re-election?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of the issue with going from November to municipal races. I think we're going to see a much smaller turnout.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we already have. It's been 600 people a day voting, right? So you're at about less than 3,000 people at this point who have voted. I think with mail-in, it's probably a lot more, probably 4,000. But that's still, I mean, that's not even
But
of how we voted before.
But let me interrupt you just for a second, because I think that George and I were talking about that. The fact that Mr. Leeser is running again might help bring more voters out, because of the interest that they have on re-electing Mr. Leeser. Don't you think?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think the mayoral race is a big race. I mean, it goes, I think people are very much divided on the things that are happening right now. And I think you have, one person who definitely stands for one ideology and another person who stands for another. And so, I definitely think it is definitely important for Mayor's Leeser's people to come out. And I hope that they do.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I have a question because this is close to home for me. I had an incident. Not me personally, but one of my son with the police department. We need, and I don't know how you feel about this, but we have got to push for those cameras, those body cameras. Now, when the policemen stop somebody and then they beat them up, and then you have no proof because they don't have the cameras, and that's what I think. Personally, I think that the chief doesn't want him, and neither does the union, because they don't want to have to show, what some of those bad cops are. They're
Well,
actually,
I think it definitely goes both ways too, right? I think, for liability, right, it goes for both ways. I think that you hear things on both sides. I think that cameras, you could also say, if you were an officer, would protect you in some situations, right? I think it's very important, right? So a lot of times, and I'm glad you're bringing this up for many reasons, right? A lot of times I've been defined, right, or I talk about pushing for things like transparency and accountability, right? And what does that mean? For me, it's every department, right? Every spending of your top tax dollars should be transparent and should be accountable to you. And I fully support body cameras. I think they are extremely important. I've been very frustrated over the last year where it comes to the conversation of purchasing them. And bear with me while I kind of digress on this, right? So in 2017, I was appointed by Mayor Margot to the Rio Grande Council of Governments. And for those who aren't familiar, they are a fiduciary institute that serves El Paso all the way to Brewster County. And so in Texas and other states, but in Texas specifically, the state is divided up into councils of governments, and federal and state dollars go through that council of governments and are dispersed through the area, right? So for us, it is El Paso to Brewster County. In 2019, I was appointed as the president. And so within the Council of Governments, there is a board that makes the final decisions, but there are these subcommittees. There is Homeland Security, there's Public Safety, there's Solid Waste, there's a number of them, right? There's the area on Aging Agency, which helps fund things for elderly individuals who need financial assistance. There who essentially brings down the food and the dollars for our senior centers, lunches and meals. But so while sitting on this committee, I saw every grant that came through this Council of Governments, from El Paso Sheriff, from City of El Paso, Office of Emergency Management, Fire, and so through all the way to Brewster County. And I definitely think that there is disparity in the way that those grants were being applied for, right? You saw this past year, Brewster County got 6 new body cameras. Of course, their sheriff's department, much smaller than our police department. I think there's probably in total 16, right, in Brewster County. We have obviously many, many more officers, but it's a start, right? There are these dollars on the table for things like this. And so the conversation has been started for years about how are we applying for grants more meaningfully, right? And there are a number of examples that I can get into that are off the subject of body cameras, but I will stick to that for this point. There are the dollars that are available. It is maybe not going to outfit all of our officers at once. Storage is an issue, but there are federal and state dollars that are available for these programs. And right, it is the council has had these conversations. They have asked for the opportunity to get these cameras. It has not come to us by way of the police chief or the city manager, and it is, and I've asked that the council be more involved with the grant process. I know the police department hired kind of a new grant person, communication person to deal with these, right? So, and kind of goes back to this conversation about me being aggressive or that I haven't done much. These things take a lot of time and they take a lot of work. Yes. And offset right now, we don't have the cameras, but we do now have a new position in the police department to specifically respond to those requests made by me to involve the council more in that process so we can be a part of it and making decisions, right? So we have made a lot of changes, and we've done that in tandem with the police department, with the city manager, with the council. And I think that you will definitely see now that that position is filled and now that that conversation has been had, more of these cameras coming through these grants. I hope that makes sense. I hope I did not just ramble.
No, you're explaining some good information for my sake anyway. But let me just make a suggestion, if I may. I would like for you to push at least that they have the night officers, okay, that they should have, they should all wear the cameras, at least to start out with, you know,
No,
because
absolutely. And I'll tell you right now, DUI and the CIT program that we talked about earlier, they have them. But you're right. Like, we need to expand. If the night officers have them next, that's great. And then when we get more money, who is the next group of people to get them? That's definitely the best way to do it.
right.
By the way, before I forget, folks, and I do apologize, I completely forgot. If you want to make a comment or a question, I will post this on the stream. I just totally forgot about that component. Sorry about that. But so, Mr. Nell, I know we're coming up, and I want to take too much time of your time. Too much time. You know
Too
what I
much of your time.
There you go. I'm trying to read and talk, so I'm trying to see what comments there are. So before we go, Mr. Nell, can you just tell people, the voters, why you're the best candidate for District 2?
Sure, absolutely. I think that, and I kind of want to touch on the conversation about me being aggressive a little bit. I don't know that I responded, but I'll do that in this is, before I was in office, we had a council that completely just agreed with everything they told, and our community suffered because of it. Right. For 4 years, I have been fighting for the people and with the people, right? Like, I definitely believe that our decisions should be made by the public, and every decision we made is funded through your tax dollars. And so you should be a part of that conversation. I fought very hard to make sure that we were making decisions transparently. We were being transparent about how we were spending dollars, what we were spending them on. I mean, we've made so much progress in the last 3 years. I know that we talked a little bit about my opponent, right? She has been absolutely just completely untruthful about some things. And I don't think that that's the representative or the representation that this district deserves. I think that in 2017, the voters made a decision, and I believe they'll do so again, that they would like to have a representative that is honest with them, that is completely transparent, and is doing what is best for them, and not the people who are financially benefiting by the council's decisions.
I saw a video this morning, Miss Anello. I think it was this morning or yesterday, last night on Facebook. And the life of me, I forgot who it was, who posted or whatnot. Anyway, it shows a video of you presenting Ms. Gutierrez with a certificate or something, like 15 years. And I know that might come up. So what was that about?
Yeah, so I mean, things were not going well in the office with Ms. Gutierrez and I. She did retire, and at the end of the day, I am not a person, and staff from the city will tell you this too, and council, and it goes back to kind of the conversation about aggressive. We may have a conversation at council that is heated, but after that is over, personally, I don't take those with me, right? And so Ms. Gutierrez maybe didn't work out in my office. We maybe did not see eye to eye on the morals of the office. But at the end of the day, she did serve District 2 for 15 years, right? And she did work for me. I was not going to keep Ms. Gutierrez in my office, but my husband was in a car accident and was in a coma, and the transition would have been so hard, and she was kind enough to offer to stay on to see if it would work out to help me through that situation. And so, whatever professional issues that we had, she's still right? She's still a person that was in my life for years. She's still a person that was in this office for years, and she still deserved the respect to not just be, okay, it's your last day, goodbye, right? Like, I don't believe in that. That's not the kind of person I am. I know you and I have talked many times. I think that you can attest to that as well. And it just goes back to the fact that professionally and personally, those two things are separate for me. And I did that out of respect for someone who did work in the office for 15 years, right? Whether I saw eye to eye with them, whether I wanted them to continue in my office, they did do that job for 15 years.
Well, what they should do, what people should do is I think athletes demonstrate the difference between losers and good sportsmen and champions. You win some and you lose some, but you don't just walk away because you lost. You just come back. And that's the thing that people have to learn to accept. A defeat as well as being victorious. So the only thing that I ask of you or my representative is to always have the door open. Leave your door open, at least a little crack, so that we can always come in and present our concerns, our issues. And if you're willing to do that, I think the voters would really appreciate that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think that going back to the parting gift that I gave Ms. Gutierrez, right? I think that just shows, right? Our relationship did not work out professionally, and I was the bigger person and wanted her to give the respect. And her response is to, come into this race and just be completely untruthful, hurtful personally, and just lie about things that aren't true.
It's like just kind of put it in perspective, folks, especially to my fellow brothers and sisters with disabilities. They know that me and Mr. Julio Perez are good, close friends. He's the ADA coordinator. He's been to my wedding. He's been to my mom passed
He's a
away.
great guy. Yeah.
But there are times in meetings that I will jump on him. And like you said, in a meeting, that's totally different. As soon as we walk out, hey, brother, when we're in the meetings, he has to address the issues at hand. So yeah, you're right. And in a professional, I might go after him, and I call him afterwards. Like, are we good? You know why I did that, right? Or vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, yeah, I understand that. You're holding me to the fire, and I respect that. And that's what people need to understand, that there's professionalism and there's private, and you not to mix both of them. That's the worst thing you want to do. So that shows a lot. It shows a lot what you did.
George, if you look at the difference between Trump and Biden doesn't
Lord.
take anything personal. He just, and Trump takes everything personal. You can't do that if you're running for office. You really can't.
No.
And
It's a
she's,
disservice to the community.
yes,
It really is.
yes, you're correct.
So, Ms. Annello, I do appreciate you coming on. I mean, this is like your fourth or fifth time. I do appreciate you've never said no, or you never, oh, this or that. Just to let people know, you reach out to District 4 representatives, and it wasn't that good. So I'll leave it at that. That's all I'll say. People were trying to tell me how to run my own show, so I get that. I won't say who it is.
Well,
It's not-
I personally want to thank you, Ms. Annello, for taking the time, and we've had a good discussion here. We had some good questions asked of you, and you always seem to be willing to respond, and we appreciate that.
Yeah,
Yes,
and
ma'am.
absolutely.
Any last words, Ms. Annello, before we leave?
I mean, again, thank you guys for having me here. I do appreciate the opportunity. It has been hard with COVID to talk to people. And I think that, as I said, right, a lot of things gets lost in negative campaigns with, what are the answers to the issues? Who is really, more prepared to be on this job? And so I really, again, thank you for the opportunity to be able to just talk about policy.
Thank
Yes, ma'am.
you.
Oh, before we go, I wanted to ask you one question. I'm not sure how involved the city council was in this. I'm not sure. I think they were back in May, regarding the purchasing of buildings for the CARES money. 'Cause I know Lisa and a KBIA extra, he said that he wouldn't have done that. He would have used that money more for small businesses. And what do you say to that?
Yeah, I mean, that is a hard one. A lot of that conversation was an executive, so I can't talk a lot about it. So let me kind of gather my words here. I think that, we have seen a lot of chaos in medical facilities recently, right? Hospitals are overrun. Distribution of the vaccine was a huge concern of ours, right? I mean, I know that it's going to be done in phases, but where was that going to be done, right? Because while people are getting the vaccine, people will still be sick. Our public health department, our building is not equipped for that. The convention center, at one moment was being used for an overrun hospital. We don't know if that will continue or have to be done again. And so really wanting to make sure that we had the facilities to treat people as well as distribute the vaccine was extremely important. Our health department also is not a great building at the time, right? It's not in great condition. It's not set up to service a pandemic. And I think, many cities would tell you that they don't have a health department that's set up to service a pandemic, because I know no one on this call has lived through this before, right? And so, just making the decisions to be able to deal with the vaccine and then move forward to what things look like in the future was extremely important for sure.
Well, I have a last minute question too.
Sure.
Now that you brought up the vaccines, the news indicated that we're going to get 700,000. Texas is going to get 700,000 vaccines. What is a number that, if you know, that El Pasoans might be receiving?
We don't know, right?
No.
That hasn't and again, that's one thing, right? Like goes back to the governor may do that directly. He may do that through the Council of Governments, like we said, like they do emergency funding. It has not been decided, right? And they will be phased in phased in vaccines, right? So we know that medical, healthcare, first responders will get it first.
Yeah.
We
Right.
don't know officially who the second group is, right? The assumption has kind of been the elderly, I would hope so, or school teachers. We don't know. That has not really come down at all from anyone. The only information that we have at the moment is that, these are the amount that Texas will get.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's if they're able to, if they're able to produce it at the capacity that they're assuming
Yeah.
that they can, right? And this goes back to the buildings and the equipment that was purchased. Right, first you were being told you need them at super cold temperatures. Now they're saying, well, one vaccine doesn't. We don't really know exactly which one is going to come out first and when that is. So it was super important to say, okay, well, if we wake up on January 1st and they're like, we have a vaccine, you're going to get 700,000 of them, and they have to be kept at this temperature, we're prepared to do that,
Yeah.
and we wouldn't have been if we didn't take the steps necessary to spend the money.
Right.
Ms. Annello, did you, and that kind of people might want to see if you have an opinion on this. There was like last month or a few weeks ago, there was a traveling nurse that apparently had left UMC because she's, I guess, goes from state to state, and she had described the situation there. They call it the pin, I think it was called, or I forgot what they call it, where in ICU, where they will let people die. Do you have an opinion on that or not? Regarding that video, did you see that video?
I did see the video, and I've subsequently read the stories about how there was no evidence of that. I can't speak to what happened in the situation that she's talking about. I've been to the hospitals. I've seen what the situation they're in right now is. I also, getting very personal, I spent a month and a half at the ICU at UMC, right? And I absolutely cannot imagine. And I know it was a very different situation, right? My husband was in the hospital. There was not chaos. I mean, there were, at the time, actually, there was an incident where there was a very large accident and there was a little bit of chaos. And I can't imagine that the people that gave my husband the care that they did would do what that woman had suggested. And I don't think that there are many medical professionals who would. Are we in a time where medical professionals are extremely exhausted? Do they not have the resources they need? Is there a disease that is literally taking people's lives with absolutely no rhyme or reason? Yeah, I mean, I think all of those things are true. I cannot, having been in an experience at the ICU at UMC, believe that medical professionals there or anywhere in the city, because we saw it also, after August 3rd, UMC jumped up really quickly, and so did the other ICUs, and I can't believe that that's true.
Yeah, and like my mom,
experience.
when my mom was in the ICU for 3 weeks. I'm sorry, she was in 3 weeks at Del Sol, and I can attest what you're saying, because some of those nurses, they take it personal.
Yeah. Oh,
They
absolutely.
come in, and I remember one gentleman, my mom she was at one point she was looking bad, but she got better. His attitude even changed. He came in the room more happy, and so I see what you're coming from, but so
I'll also say really quick, my neighbor recently passed away from COVID, 52 years old, no underlying health conditions. He was home recovering, was doing better, right? We saw him out in his backyard with his mask, said he was feeling much better. And then 2 days later, an ambulance came and got him. And for 3 weeks, he was in the ICU. And I can tell you, we were getting updates every day. And as his condition worsened, it also, like, there were times where I felt like the medical staff were doing too much. Right? I mean, at one point, all of his, he has since passed, but his organs were all failing, and they wanted to do emergency surgery. And it just seemed like, wow, I mean, it's someone that's in such bad condition, and there's all of these patients, they were really pushing to do whatever they could. And that's a personal experience I had too during COVID. And so it goes back to the idea that I have not had the experiences, but I am not a nurse, and I have not been on those night shifts with that woman, but I've not shared the experience that
I hear you.
But once again, we want to thank you for, showing up to our program here, and we don't want to take too much of your time, but we've gotten some real good answers. We're better for for that. And I think our listeners, I think they've got a lot of information from you, and I think it was good.
Thank
So,
you.
yeah, so your folks, you are watching No Vision Internet Radio with Mr. Bautista, Jesus Bautista. Look him up on Facebook. You can harass him all you want. That's fine. Of course, Miss Alexandra Annello. Thank you, ma'am, so much for being here with us. And of course, I am George, and we shall see you on December the 8th. It's the 8th, right, Mr. Bautista? I'm always messing that up. December the 8th at 7 p.m.
Yes.
with Judy Gutierrez. And that will be our last final round of political candidates for this year. Maybe in 2 years or 4 years, we'll do another round. And hopefully Miss Annello should be running for mayor. Anyways, everyone, have a good night, Miss Annello. Good night, Mr. Bautista, and everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.